Hello, my darling doves, and welcome back. And I hope you enjoy A Queen's Night as told in story. Once upon a time, in a land far, far away, a king and queen wanted a child. They cared not for whether it was boy or girl, and they were blessed with a beautiful baby girl with eyes of amethyst, hair as golden as the sun, and the stars written upon her skin. Princess Avalon was an atypical princess. She enjoyed reading her books, sewing with her mother, painting, and she also didn't mind when her father talked about war or combat. In fact, she started to copy some of the men when they were fighting with their swords. Her father saw this and knew his little girl had a gift. She begged and pleaded with him. "Father, I don't want to be a traditional princess. I want to learn combat. I want to help." Her father smiled and shook his head and agreed that she should learn all aspects since she would be future queen of all Safe Haven. And each day her strength grew and grew, and even the guards, who had been with the king for many a years, were impressed. One day, a new recruit came. His name was Jay. He was young, calm, collected, and cool, and not arrogant like a few others. The council members, of course, disagreed with a commoner being knighted, but they could not say anything against the king, or the princess's backing of Jay's prowess. And every day that they trained together, Jay and Avalon grew closer and closer and more than just a princess and a knight. They were best friends. And soon it came that the last battle that the king had fought, he retired his broken sword to his daughter. And she walked down the halls of Safe Haven to the priestess, where her father had held the queen's crown upon a satin silk sheet. "Princess Avalon, please kneel. Do you swear to uphold the laws, protect the people, and the laws of Safe Haven as queen, to guide this country through war, poverty, peace, and happiness, through all things that it may face?" "I do swear." "Do you swear to also hold the truths and the liberties that people hold, to help guide them, to be the hand that hurts but also the hand that saves when needed?" "I do swear." "Then as my right given to me by your father as sacred priestess of Safe Haven and the goddess, I hereby crown you Queen Avalon of Safe Haven. Long live the Queen!" The crowd erupted into cheers and shouted, "Long live the Queen! Long live the Queen!" Could hear it for miles. And for many years, Queen Avalon had reigned prosperous, until one day, one of her council members decided that it was time for her to marry. "Marriage? You can't just force me to marry someone I don't know." They placated her by saying, "You'll get to know him. You'll understand him. And maybe you'll even like him. And he could possibly one day be queen." When she met the prince, he was arrogant, cruel, and selfish. He wanted control. "You should tax the people more. Tax those poor farmers." But she didn't want that. She didn't want to tax people who were working hard for their wages, while others just sat around and did nothing. She wanted to tax those that had enough money to provide for not only themselves but also to the kingdom. She lowly taxed the poor and highly taxed the rich. This did not please the council nor the prince. And so she decided, "I do not want to marry you. You're cruel, arrogant, and selfish, and I will not have anybody telling me how to run my kingdom. And I will not have somebody who would rather see the poor go into poverty and possibly throw them into prison for it, when they cannot pay their taxes, when they are overly taxed." The prince was aghast and gaped. He stormed off, and she warned the council to never do this again. Otherwise, she would have their jobs. It wasn't until several nights later, while the princess was asleep, that she was taken from her bedchambers. She screamed, and a maid ran and found her room thrashed. The sword that she prized above all else, given to her by her father, created by a top blacksmith, was laying on the floor, a bit of blood on it. It was not the princess's, for she was more skilled with the sword than most of the soldiers. They spent weeks trying to find the princess. She was nowhere to be found. Jay led the search party, calling out for her, when suddenly he heard a scream. Screams of pain and crying. They raced towards the sounds, and when they came, they saw a place covered in ash and soot. There was nothing for miles. Not even birds singing. No animals to be found, and nothing green, except for the surrounding area around the ashen pile. And in the middle, they saw their queen, broken, bloodied, her back torn to shreds. Among other things, the queen was also gifted by magic, by the goddess. And she was taught by many a sorcerer and grew more powerful every day, and she had never lost control until that one day. Jay had taken her home, but the damage was done. The marks were permanent. She never once again trusted the council, and would ignore them constantly if they ever asked for her, or told her how to run her kingdom. Later on, Jay had confessed his feelings to Avalon, told her that he loved her, that the day that he found her broke his heart more than anything, because it hurt so much, because he thought he lost her. And she loved him as well. She always had. They soon began to decide to court. The council was furious. They wanted her to have somebody they chose, so they could control not only her and her rebellious ways, but also the kingdom and how it was run. She refused and disbanded the council, banished them out of Safe Haven. One council member was more bereft than the others. He convinced a prince, Prince Metellus Crimson, to wage war on Safe Haven, not telling the prince of the numbers that Safe Haven had, nor telling the prince that Avalon supplied exports to his kingdom and to his parents. And when he tried, the prince had failed. Avalon saw through his ruse, knew immediately that one of her previous council members had tried to take over the kingdom. He failed miserably and was escorted out of the kingdom. She did not believe in killing those who were not ready to die, unlike the last time. She would never again do that. Unless she absolutely needed to, she would never again. The council member was brought before trial and found guilty and banished to the far outlands where everyone knew his name, his crimes against the kingdom. And he was shunned, and nobody ever listened to him, because they knew that if they were ever to try to wage war against Safe Haven, they would lose. Later on, Jay had asked Avalon to marry him, and she said yes. And they were wed in the sacred halls of her home by the same priestess who crowned her queen, and Avalon herself had crowned Jay king. Together they ruled the kingdom with love and benevolence and kindness, and only raising a harsh hand whenever they needed to, whenever any rich person ever tried to get out of line. They were stronger together. They fought side by side. And they loved side by side. And together they had 2 children who would one day take over the kingdom and pass on their story for ages to come. You may be asking, is this a real story? Or is this merely a legend? Well, some legends, they say, ring with truth. And I should know. I was the queen, the princess, the captain of the guard. So you tell me, was it real? Alright, my doves, I hoped you enjoyed, and as always, please like, share, and subscribe. Bye.